here's two tax returns. I'm going to call them 1 and 2. Which one looks more complicated, 1 or 2?
They're the same.
They're the same. This is a Schedule C. This is a sole proprietor. This is an S-Corp. What's that?
What does sole proprietor mean? I can't even say the word.
The individual is running their business as themselves. So it's on your 1040 on your
It's a regular
personal tax.
LLC.
What's that?
So it's a regular LLC.
It can be an LLC disregarded to you as an individual. So a lot of accountants will say, you're going to be a sole proprietor. We're going to file it on your tax return.
Yeah.
And I'll show you why you don't do that when I actually show the numbers.
Is that the same
But
as an DBA?
the difference between these, does that mean no LLC? No, it means LLC taxed as an S-Corp. We want everything to go as an S-Corp if you're a real estate agent. If you do everything under your personal name, you're going as a sole proprietor. If you set up an LLC and say ignore it for tax purposes, it's called a disregarded LLC, then you're doing it as a sole proprietor. If you do a DBA under your personal name, you're a sole proprietor. And it's the easiest way to do it. Now, here's the reality. The record keeping requirements are identical. Books and records by the IRS does not distinguish between a sole proprietor, S-Corp, C-Corp, partnership, trust. It does not matter to them. They do not care. So not only do they ignore the LLC and they say, tell us whether it's you or an S-Corp, and the record keeping requirements are the same. So it never makes sense to me that, you know, accountants say, well, it's so much easier to be an S-Corp. What they're saying is they're not keeping it in compliance. So it's not going to win if you get into tax court. Somebody says, can't you do an LLC taxed as an S-Corp? Yes, Chelsea. An LLC is something that we set up with the state, and the federal government says, how do you want me to tax it? And you could say, well, I want you to ignore it. I want you to treat it as a C-Corp. I want you to treat it as an S-Corp. I want you to treat it as a partnership. They're really easy. LLCs are fantastic. And if you can set up an LLC and be taxed as a S-Corp, that's usually the route we go. Usually the route. But let me just show you the difference from a dollars and cents standpoint. S-Corp versus partnership, or excuse me, versus sole proprietor. If I just set these things up and all I do is file that one page to make my LLC an S-Corp versus having it just be taxed on my personal return. What happens is you save on all of the profit that comes out of that business. And I'll touch on that in a second. You do not have to pay Social Security taxes. Social Security taxes are 15.3%. They're also called self-employment taxes. So it saves you what amounts to about, the math ends up being 14.1%, but a lot of people say 15.3. There's a partial deduction. You save 14% on the money that you take. The only thing that we have to do differently is we have to take a small salary. So if you set up an S-Corp, you would take salary once a year, once a quarter. If you want to take it monthly, you can, but it's a portion of the total profit. That's why accountants say they're harder, is you do have to do a payroll, but you could do payroll once a year. And you could just say, hey, I made 100,000. I'll take $30,000 in payroll. But that's not a bad thing. You could defer 19,500 of that directly into a 401k if you want and pay no tax on it. It's actually very, very easy, but I'll just show you kind of the math. I am getting an extra $4,600 off of making 60 grand. So just put it in perspective. I am going to keep an extra close to 5 grand just by making an S election. All I have to do is one payroll. So if I told you, hey, you have to do one payroll, but I'm going to give you a check for 4 grand every year, would you do it? That's the question. And it gives you the protection. If I'm making
Yeah,
more,
and your CPA also does that. So it's not like you're gonna have to suddenly do payroll. Like
it's
most
easy.
CPAs will give you a service and they say, hey, you can reach out to this company, or they might even do it for you.
Yep. And like, there's lots of places. I don't know if you have employees, like if you're an agent that's just you, it's really easy. If you're an agent and you have employees already that you're doing W-2 for, then it's just adding yourself to it. It's super simple. Like it'll take you, maybe a few minutes. It's not going to take much at all. If it's just you and you have to do payroll once a year, that's going to be the hardest thing. We do it for our clients. I think it's $199 to do them quarterly. It's not that much. But your accountant may do it for you. You could go to, Payroll City online and do it, or Intuit online, do it. There's lots of easy ways to do it if you want to do it yourself. If you're making 100 grand, by the way, here's the numbers on that. You're going to save yourself over $7,600. And this is just one little aspect of it. There's other benefits to being an S-Corp because you become an employee.